So just so you know, I've been doing this for a long time. I have been a speaker regarding self-custody of digital assets. I have talked, I've issued NFT awards for businesses and companies. I've created NFTs, and usually my class looks a little bit more like this picture over here with a whole bunch of people in it, but today's a light day and that's perfectly fine. But I've also hosted discussions on digital identity. Let me see. I'm trying to see if this is going to work, guys. Sorry. Golly, they're really testing me. Okay. I don't know what just happened there. Looks like the laptop just turned off. And I've got it charging, at least I thought I did. Jeez. Yeah, it was charged. Yeah, I got my little power brick. A month of power at my fingertips, but apparently it's not doing me too good. Alright, now let's see what I can do. There's more than one way to skin a cat and mouse. Let's see. If I can broadcast. It's funny, I've been sitting here for an hour just chilling because there was nobody in this room. I had everything up and ready, testing it out. It's great. Okay. Yeah, I got it too early. Well, let me see if I can share my screen here in another way.
Yeah, his name is Greg Wright.
Yes, Greg Wright. He claims to be Satoshi. Yeah. That's nonsense. But
I personally believe it was a group of people, and Assange is one of them.
Yeah,
Definitely a group of people.
Yeah.
Because he's got the brain power, along with the other people that he was involved with.
Yeah, the truth is if any individual were to have dropped this technology, history shows that they probably wouldn't have lasted very long. Yeah. Something so disruptive would have to have come from an environment like that with confusion and anonymity. Because
back in the day before blockchain or Bitcoin, they were all in these little groups talking about digital money. And then blockchain, or Bitcoin came out. After all the other ones had little problems, but they all came together and worked out those problems.
My laptop died. Unbelievable. Yeah. Well, guys, gosh, I had a full-fledged 3D environment. Yeah, give me I'm so sorry. It is charging though, so hopefully I just switched. Yeah, we'll just chat. So basically, yeah, we'll just chat. That's fine. If this pops up, we can go back in. But basically, throughout history, money and power do change. This is a fact. And have you guys ever watched Ray Dalio's The Changing World Order? Does anybody know who Ray Dalio is?
I know him, but I haven't seen that. Is that a YouTube? Or what?
It is a video. It's got about, I think 47 million views or something like that. He's been on CNN, he's talked to governments, and basically what he has discovered is throughout history, due to certain dynamics, we change our money and we change power. And so just like, these are his examples that I'll flesh out with you, is, just like the Dutch were able to create better ships, they were able to use that technology and become the superpower of that time. And then the British followed suit, and they started doing more strategic things and made better technology in their ships, and then they became the power. And then after the British, then it was the US's turn. And so we've seen money change. We've seen power change. Now these cycles, interestingly enough, they last approximately 150 to 200 years. And we're at the 150 mark of America's dominant cycle. And when we first started, the American dollar was one of the most powerful things, right? And then we had we had Nixon take us off of the dollar standard, right? Why? Because countries were cashing out gold and they were trying to take our valuable asset, right? Our hard asset. So we started to work off of a fiat currency, which is not rare. This is something that occurs common over and over and over. So our problem is we've been printing money. So over the past 100 years, we accumulated $8 trillion in debt in 100, and then in 20 years after that, we accumulated 26 trillion. So what that means is we're seeing an exponential increase in debt, to kind of make it simple. And so that means we're starting to lose purchasing power per dollar unit. Now that's a bummer, because you work for money. Maybe you're retired, but we all work for money. And if you're given money that represents your time, your effort, your sweat, and that money loses value, quite literally it translates into somebody is taking your life. They're stealing your life energy away, or they're stealing your money away. Hey, what's going on? And so my laptop just died. Sorry. So we're doing verbals today. And so it is important to understand that when we make money and we are given assets, we want to make sure that that asset represents the value that we were given and also can sustain that value over time. Maybe even do more than sustain, maybe even possibly grow over time, which is why a lot of people liked gold. But something interesting happened in the past 12 years, 13 years. We've invented a technology that allows us to validate truth of many different kinds without a central authority. Now that might be kind of complicated, but what that basically means is currently every validation source that we use is a central authority that validates for us. For example, your debit card, you swipe that debit card, the validating source is your bank, right? And so we trust the banks allow us to make that transaction, and we grab our milk and we go. Well, in blockchain, the validation is decentralized and global. You're no longer using one central entity. You're using a decentralized web, a network, to communicate that truth. And by doing that, interesting things happen. You start to fractionalize ownership, which means instead of a boardroom of people or owners of a bank getting all of the profits for the fees, all of the fees start to become evenly distributed over the network, and which means money starts to divide amongst the people more evenly than the current imbalance that our system employs now. We have a tremendous imbalance. It's really easy to see. Where are all the blockbusters today? Do you know where the blockbuster videos are?
They're gone.
They're gone, right?
Except for Alaska, I think, has
Yeah, I think that's true. There's one more in Alaska. So why did the blockbusters die should be the question. What happened to them? Well, things like network streaming, video streaming came out, and the global reach of streaming far usurped an individual's ability to erect a building, put video cassettes in them, and have people driving back and forth, late fees, all this stuff. It just became super simple, super convenient, and super cheap. And so all of a sudden, we saw technology destroy an entire industry. And we've seen this over and over again through monopolistic attitudes utilizing technology. Walmart is another one of those things. Amazon is another one of those things. As convenient and easy as they are highly destructive to our middle class infrastructure, and they're killing all the mom and pop shops that would have existed in their stead. So if we start to see technology expand in this way monopolistically, it actually is just as equal that if we were to decentralize some of these components, they would expand in a decentralized way and actually restore some of the destruction that monopolistic attitudes had. And so that's what we're looking at when we're talking about blockchain. We're talking about decentralizing, so no more central authorities. We're decentralizing, we're splitting everybody up, and we're trying to rebuild back an infrastructure of trust and validation through the many instead of the few. And so it's a very powerful technology when you consider it. But we also have to consider a lot of other things. Not every network is equal. And so if we look at our current situation with the dollar, and we look at the devaluation of the dollar because of printing, we have to say, well, if my buying power dies when they print, then I want to make sure if we're creating a new economy with blockchain, I don't want them to be able to print more tokens. I want a fixed supply of an asset so they can't devalue my money when it's in my hands. And so that's why Bitcoin is this big revolution right now, because it's a fixed supply asset, meaning that there's only 21 million. So when value goes in it, the token value goes up, and that's it. No, they can't print more tokens and drive the value down. And so if you consider this is globally accepted, globally exchangeable, it's open 24/7, there's no downtime. This is a very interesting proposition to be able to store our money in these types of environments, because now, if there's anything that ever happens, well, that's fine. I can exchange this with China. I can exchange this with Germany. I can exchange this with the Swiss. I can go on to a regular trading environment, convert this to a different currency, and then I can exchange it back into the currency I choose. It gives you the flexibility that storing your money in a bank doesn't. And so if we know that this asset class is more and more every day becoming readily available, it's a very interesting thing to consider. Maybe I should put some of my value in this space as it expands. And I have some wonderful charts and graphs to show you the growth potential, but I don't have them with me right now. And the fact is the growth potential is showing that blockchain is growing at a rate without marketing, without advertising. It's growing at about 200% per year since the first year that it dropped. That's astounding, because we don't see growth at that rate. In fact, even gold, when the ETF dropped for gold, we didn't see gold grow this fast. That's a red flag. That is a warning that something is happening here, and we should probably turn our gaze at it and figure out why this is occurring. So aside from blockchain being ultra secure, globally accepted, we also have the ability to engage in it independently. We no longer need an infrastructure like a bank or an investment firm to get action in this. A lot of the mentality suggests that they don't understand this, which is why 14 exchange-traded funds on the US stock market just got approved for Bitcoin and multiple cryptocurrencies. So the traditional mind, the people that are used to giving money to institutions to earn interest, they're starting to get involved at a huge rate. That being said, there's also a component of blockchain where I can teach you guys how to interact with it directly, where you're not utilizing a third-party firm. And the benefit of that is you get all the interest. You get all the interest, but you also have more responsibility. And so teaching people that responsibility on how to self-custody their assets, how to build a wallet properly, how to follow a protocol so that you're durable in case there's any technology hiccups, or you lose your phone, or a computer goes, or there's a fire in your home. If you follow this protocol, you'll be what I consider durable in the space. You'll never lose your money. You'll always have ways back to your money. And that is really our biggest problem right now, is so many people are trying to enter the space, they're making mistakes, and they can't get back to their money. For example, FTX, right? We've talked about FTX before. In FTX, what did everybody do? They made a purchase, they left it inside of FTX, and FTX had a problem. Whatever the problem is, it doesn't matter what the wrapper is. The end result is these individuals lost their money. Why did they lose their money? Because they gave their money to somebody. And time again, history has proven when we hand over our money to environments, institutions, individuals, if something happens, we risk losing it. The power of blockchain is quite different when properly applied. We can build self-custody wallets, and we can hold our own money, and that's what I do. I do boot camps on that. We get in a Zoom meeting, we pull up a wallet maker, I teach you guys how to build the wallet, I make sure we don't share any information so you guys remain safe, and you're able to construct that wallet. And I also have a test environment where you can go through, build a test wallet with fake money, practice till you become a master, and then you can open a real wallet that looks exactly the same, but now your heart's not beating 1,000 beats per minute. You know exactly what to do. You're not going to make an error that's going to cause you to lose your money. And so this is really what I'm here for, is to try and teach people how to change their perspective on what blockchain really is and start to actually employ it and use it in their life. Because, like I said, this is a growth market. It's growing so incredibly fast. We want to get involved, just like we wanted to get involved with Apple in the beginning, or just like we wanted to get involved with Microsoft in the beginning. These were very powerful things that scaled out into a large portion of the globe. There's a lot of people that use these products. Well, blockchain will be more similar than that because it's actually going to grow and everybody will use it seamlessly. They won't even realize they're using it. These are the rails of communication and transactions that we're looking at. And so, because I don't have my slides, let's go through some basic fundamentals because I really can't show you how to build a wallet at this time. Yeah. Yeah.
So you said that they don't mine, they don't create new bitcoins.
You cannot. Yeah, there's only a fixed amount on the algorithm. So there's only 21 million bitcoins that will ever be created, ever in the world. And so if you consider there's only 21 million of them, do you guys know how many millionaires there are in just the US alone? Do you know? There's over 41 million millionaires, multi-millionaires. So not every millionaire can even get one Bitcoin. Does that make sense? So that means the value of Bitcoin is going to have to rise as money starts to enter it. So the people that get it and self-custody it first will probably do very, very well in the near future.
So I think on the television, somewhere I saw how in China they have farms.
Yes, mining farms.
Just servers.
Right,
No,
mining farms. Yeah.
Mining farms.
Yes.
What is they mining?
They're mining Bitcoins. Yeah, so they want to, so when you mine Bitcoin, you do two things. Not only are you supporting the layer 1 infrastructure so that transactions can happen, but those nodes are also validating transactions and they're getting rewarded for the effort. So China wants this mining farm because they're getting Bitcoins. Now China is really smart. Why do they want Bitcoins should be the next question. Why are they so aggressively trying to capture this asset class?
Well,
Same reason they're buying gold.
Exactly. It's a hard asset that's globally exchangeable and recognizable, and it's uncorruptible. So it makes sense that China would aggressively do this, and if China's doing it, we probably should too, because they're going for hard assets that are globally exchangeable. Why shouldn't we? Right?
The 21 million are gone.
There's 19 million that are already out, so there's less than 2 million left to be deployed. And I did the math. There's a halvening event that just occurred yesterday. Happy halvening, post-halvening day, if you guys were aware. My brother and I were celebrating and we were watching, and it was awesome. We watched the Bitcoin blocks double their transaction price from one moment to that halvening.
Wow.
Doubled. So we were looking at 7 Bitcoins per block, maybe 12, and then instantly, once the halvening happened, it went from 12, 24, 30 Bitcoins per transaction block, which means the miners recognized the value and they started charging for it. So what's interesting now is they're getting less rewards because it's a halvening event. We went from 900 Bitcoin a day to 450 Bitcoin a day. So they're going to be getting less, but they're going to, so it's like this. They were making a lot of money on the rewards, and they were making less money on the transaction fees. And now they're starting to make less money on the rewards and more money on the transaction fees. So this becomes a sustainable environment that's crossing value. Okay? And so really the exciting thing there is the demand aspect of blockchain.
Where are these other than China mining farms?
Oh, they're all over the world. We have mining farms in Germany, we have mining farms in Switzerland, we have many mining farms in the US, China, obviously. They are everywhere. It's truly a globally decentralized network. And I just asked ChatGPT, I said, how many miners are there for Bitcoin in the world? And they said well over 1 million. People are running servers at home. Some people are running nodes that don't generate. They just want to support the layer run. So they have a computer at home that's just mining, and it doesn't have all the components to get rewards, but they just want to support that infrastructure. So they're running these computers, and it's not going to stop. It's only going to scale because we see new chip manufacturers and new GPU manufacturers starting to embed mining right into the sub-layer of the processing. You've heard of this. And so that means this TV, when it's sitting here, could be mining some of the blockchain network, or this laptop. And that's going to start. And once that starts, you guys, these networks will not die. And there's a lot of people that insist that this is a fad and it's going to change, and that's great. I wish them well. But we have seen this before in history, and to turn a blind eye to this technology, this growth, its capabilities and what it offers, it's a personal choice, and I wish them well, but I don't think this is going anywhere. I think it's getting more and more powerful every day. The fact that our US government is accepting it now, the fact that most governments are accepting it now, is kind of a big deal. And so to get involved through self-custody and utilizing it correctly, that's really the power here. Because could you imagine owning one whole Bitcoin, knowing that Bitcoin's probably going to be $1 million in the next 2 to 5 years? It's probably going to be 10 million by 2030 or 2035. That is a lot. I look at the numbers, I look at the inflows and the outflows, and like I said, I'm really sad that I don't have my laptop so I could show you the charts. But we're looking at a demand of almost 4,000 Bitcoins per day because of the new ETFs that were launched on the stock market. 4,000 per day are needed for the demand. Guess how many Bitcoin are produced globally every day now? 420.
Wow.
Globally per day. The demand is 4,000. So if anybody is a master of supply-demand economics, we're about to see Bitcoin slowly rise and keep rising, because that is what's happening here. Ooh, guys, I think we're getting power. Let's see what I can do. Oh, God, it's just going to keep dying on me. What's that? When do I teach? Well, so I'm retired. This is a passion project. So what I do is you can take my business card, and I do Zoom meetings, private Zoom meetings. I can do like 2 or 3. I've done up to 8 in one class before. And we do a boot camp. We actually go over my real world, because I have batteries at home that don't die, right? I'm plugged into a wall. So we actually go through the real environment. We look at the changing world order. We look at our current economic structure, and then we look at the growth of Bitcoin, and then we go into wallet construction. And when you leave my boot camp, you have a working wallet with a strategy on how to always access your money. We've given you a crypto steel to make you more durable than just a seed phrase on paper. And we teach you how to use trezors, ledgers to prevent man-in-the-middle attacks. And if you don't store your crypto on a crypto steel, if you have a seed phrase written on paper, please, I urge you to take my class. It's incredibly risky. There is no customer service if that paper gets damaged or destroyed. And if you're typing in your password to send money back and forth, please take my class, because you need to understand there's things like malware, man-in-the-middle attacks, and you need to keep those passwords off of your screen, which means you need a third-party hardware device so you can put in a PIN and a password and authenticate that transaction with the zero-knowledge proof tech to make sure you could send that money in and out without anybody ever knowing how you did it. Once you understand these basic concepts, you become bulletproof in the space of blockchain and crypto, and you're able to really utilize it for what it's for. And like I said, the reason we're going into this space is because these siloed environments are controlled. Banks don't give us much return anymore. I remember my grandma worked for a bank. When I was a kid, she worked for Bank of America. And I remember her talking all the time. We get 7% interest. They would give you a toaster. You would walk in, they would greet you with 2 or 3 people, and then they would sit you down and they would just love on you and be like, we really appreciate you giving us your money. We're going to do so good for you. We're going to give you 7% interest. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. We would love for you to be in our bank family. That's how it was. Nowadays, they have limited hours. There is no customer service. You're not getting interest returns. And if you try to move over $100,000 in the bank, good luck. It's going to take you a week and a whole bunch of forms and a lot of stink eye. They're going to be looking at you like this. What are you doing with this money? Like it's not even your money. And I don't like these attitudes. And so I started researching a little bit deeper with the FDIC. Everybody's heard of FDIC insurance, right? This is the insurance that protects our money while it's in a bank. Well, last year they just dropped a notice and nobody was paying attention. Maybe you guys were, but not many were. They said they do not have enough money to insure money in the bank. They said for every 100,000, they can give you $100 back. So, and they posted it loud and proud. They said, hey guys, just to let you know, FDIC does not have enough money to protect you. We no longer honor the $250,000 guarantee. We can give you $100 for every 100,000. That's how much we have. And then the news rolled on. And nobody seemed to think about it because they're all in a very complacent place. They're used to the environment, and because they're used to that environment, unfortunately, that's not going to help them. They need to wake up. We need to realize the situation. Banks are institutions. They are struggling institutions. They have to lend money to make money, and they have to fee us to stay in existence because they have infrastructure. They have buildings. They have desks. They have employees. They have healthcare. They have retirement. They have 401ks. And all of this comes out of the fees that you're putting your money into. And so the important thing to realize is the new infrastructure, blockchain infrastructure, doesn't have that weight. It doesn't have the buildings. It doesn't have the employees. It's autonomous. And the rules can't be changed, which means somebody can't tweak it and say, well, you used to get 7% on your bank account, but now we're going to give you 1%. There's nobody in place to make that change. And so these networks are inherently more honest. And so it is important that we go into these networks and kind of figure out how we can leverage them for our benefit. And so that brings me back to blockchain. Are all blockchains created equal? Now that we're looking at blockchain, right, how do we look at blockchain to see which blockchains are good for us? Are they all the same? Is it an environment where I just get to pick and choose? Well, the truth is it's a little more sophisticated than that. Blockchains operate differently. Yes, they all use SHA-256 hash encryption to lock data down, but the layer ones inherently function differently on different blockchains. So what does that mean? Well, we talked about tokenomics, we talk about economics. Tokenomics is simply how many tokens are created, how many tokens can ever be created. So let's pick the second favorite blockchain network in the world, Ethereum. Have you guys heard of that network before?
Yeah.
Okay, so can somebody Google and tell me what the tokenomics is for Ethereum? How many tokens does Ethereum make? Now, we're basing this off of Bitcoin. Why is Bitcoin so valuable? Because it has a fixed asset supply. There's only 21 million. You can't inflate it, right? Or you can't cause that inflation. So can we cause inflation in Ethereum? That's the question I'm trying to answer here. So if you look it up, I use ChatGPT, it gives it to me really quick. The tokenomics on Ethereum is you can print that token to infinity. So there's no fixed supply in Ethereum. So if we logically look at what we're leaving an environment that has fiat money that can be printed to infinity, which is devaluing our purchasing power. Why logically would we enter into another space that has that same mechanism built right into it? So we have to start approaching blockchain with a more logical perspective to make sure that we're not trying to recreate some of the flaws that led us to flee our current economic environment in the first place. Another thing that is important to understand is, okay, so we've already locked in on fixed supplies, right? We love tokens with fixed supply because they preserve our value. Okay, if we don't have a fixed supply, we should be a little concerned. Now, I'm not saying these tokens will not rise, because remember, Bank of America used to give you 7%. What I'm talking about is over time, we have the potential to devalue that currency. And so we don't want that potential anymore. It'll hamstring our kids, it'll hamstring our kids' kids. So we want to support networks that have fixed supply. Cardano has a fixed supply. So this is a network that I like to play in because I know when money goes in, nobody can inflate or deflate my value. It's going to stay static. Another thing that's really important is who's heard of Bitcoin Cash? Bitcoin Satoshi's vision. Bitcoin Gold. Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. Have you guys heard of these things? Why did these happen? Why did these chains break and fork into two separate entities? Does anybody know? Because I witnessed it. I remember when it was all over the news, when it was occurring, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a tragedy. Why is the chain splitting?
The problem with the token is they break it and create another one.
The chain, yes, the chain can split. That's called a hard fork, right? So they fork it, and then one group follows one ideal and one group follows another. So this isn't really a blockchain problem. This is a people problem. People need to be able to vote and decide on the direction of the blockchain. So we know we need fixed supplies to maintain our value, but we also need to be able to vote to be able to change the direction of the chain when technology changes. We can all guarantee that technology will change over time, correct? So if technology changes and you don't have a voting mechanism on the chain, how are you going to know what to do or what everybody wants to do with the chain? And this is why we saw Bitcoin Satoshi's vision. So people felt that Bitcoin was going in a different direction, and so they forked the chain and they said, this is what Satoshi really wants. This is Satoshi's vision. And that's why a fork happened in Bitcoin. How about Ethereum and Ethereum Classic?
Doesn't consensus play a part in everything?
What's that?
Doesn't consensus play a part? So the miners have to decide which chain they want to mine like that?
Right. So the miners will decide which networks to support, right? And so it is a consensus problem, because when half of the miners break off and go a different direction, you lose that much stability in the other side, and vice versa. And so yes, consensus is a huge factor in this, because we divide our consensus people. And so we don't want to do that.
Or we reach consensus.
What's that?
Or
we reach consensus.
Like Bitcoin is
Right.
consensus actually
Right.
Bitcoin, and then these other ones that you just
Right.
mentioned.
And so what we're doing is we're looking at that chain saying, okay, so the miners are going to decide for us. The people that do my validation will choose for me. And this really inherently is not good unless every person is a miner. Because shouldn't we all vote on how our money works? Yeah.
How is the split different from devaluing currency?
It's
If it splits into two, you've got twice
Right.
as much. Potentially one has a different algorithm as far as how many you're going to mine. Like,
Right.
haven't you done the same thing as printing money at that point?
correct. And that's why this is seen as a flaw. We don't idolize this. We are turning away from this. And so that is why I brought up we need voting mechanisms on chains. Because if we don't have them, you're right. We fractionalize them, we devalue them, and we weaken them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the best network wins. So
Yeah,
back when
true.
The internet was first created, and
Right.
then they created intranets.
Exactly.
The corporation wanted their own intranet, but you
Right.
know it didn't work. And now it's just
Right.
one internet. There's only going to be one.
Yeah, now there's one. And so that's exactly correct. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to look at these blockchains and see which ones have the ability to augment their path based off of consensus of the users, not just the miners. And that's where we need voting on chain. So we're looking for networks that have fixed supply assets. We're looking for networks that have voting integrated. This is important inherently for the future growth of that network.
So that's
Yeah.
the balance of powers.
It is.
We can't have the miners decide for us.
Correct.
We can't have just the foundation decide for us.
Correct. Has to be the people, right? And so and why? Once again, why? We have to look back at our system. Can we vote on how our money is printed? They just tell us, don't they?
Yeah.
They say, hey, by the way, we're going to print X trillion and send it off to a different country. Hey, guys. And everybody's like, no, my streets are bad. My schools are underfunded. Don't print all that money and give it to another country. Keep it here. And so you see a lot of this friction, and people could vote on this in a proper economy, whereas right now it's not really our decision. Money is inherently controlled, run, printed, and created by our government. And we've always known these rules back then. If you forget history, you're doomed to repeat it. You don't mix religion, government, or money. They are very powerful creatures, and when they synergize, you lose power amongst the people. And so we're trying to look at these blockchains in a creative and interesting way that says, I don't want to repeat these problems that we've had in the past. Fixed supply, voting, and what's another one? Decentralization. It's another main pillar of value. Hashcraft Hedera. Who's heard of Hashcraft Hedera? Beautiful system. I love it. The technology is fantastic. It's a spin on blockchain, and it is going to revolutionize the world. I guarantee it.
What's it called?
Hashcraft.
Hashcrafted?
Yeah, Hashcraft.
Graph.
Yeah, Hashcraft.
Graph.
Graph. Graph. Hashcraft. So this Hashcraft technology is owned by one guy. And he invented it along with a friend of his, and then they said, hey, we're going to decentralize it. And how did they decentralize it?
Blockchain.
Well, they got Google to represent ownership, Microsoft, I know, this is a bad deal, and large corporations are the decentralization for this token. So what it is it's a privately owned token controlled by corporations with the flag that says, we're decentralized, guys. See, I don't own it. Right. Exactly. And so
Open AI, right? It's not
such
open at all.
such a lie, right? And so we're looking at these things saying, okay, we have to be really careful We need them to be decentralized, which means we want global nodes all over the planet that are validating with no central authority. We don't want a corporation running and owning and controlling the network. We've seen that to breed monopolistic attitudes, right? And so if we're going to stay away from that, it has to be fixed supply. You have to be able to vote. It has to be decentralized. But how good is it to just hold Bitcoin? Can you earn interest on your Bitcoin while you hold it?
No.
No, you cannot. So growing your wealth for you and your family, becoming your own bank, is something that you've heard in this space, right? Blockchain, we're going to bank the unbanked and be your own bank, right? But how can you be your own bank if you can't yield interest returns or rewards on your money while you're holding it? This is a very interesting problem.
Well, you can if you loan.
You can,
Loans.
yes.
The bank makes loans, it takes loans, and if you want to do that,
Right.
you can do that with Bitcoin or other chains.
Right, and so you can do that, and on some chains, so there's things called proof of stake, right? We've heard of delegated proof of stake, we've heard of liquid staking, and we've heard of DeFi, which is what you just mentioned. That's the category of decentralized finance. We can actually take your money, put it in some sort of DAO or smart contract, lend that money out, and when that contract expires, you get your payment back and interest, and then they got to use that money. This is a really unique and interesting thing. This is called decentralized finance. But even better, there are networks out there that allow you to get your money, put it in a wallet, it's in your private custody, it's liquid, link it to the blockchain. That utility token does work, and you alone get the interest returns on that money. That's less risky than DeFi because you're not lending it at a risk. You're just simply holding your money, and then the token is doing work. So this is another thing we want to look at, is wealth growth. Okay, we should have the right to grow our money and to reap all of the benefits of it instead of having a central authority take a piece. And that's what we live in right now. All of those 14 ETF exchange fund products that just were launched for Bitcoin, there is an epicenter there of control. They have the Bitcoin, they've given you paper that say you have Bitcoin, you've got some, and then you're going to earn growth, money, interest, but they're also going to take a piece of your money for the work. And I'll give you an example if you guys consider these guys fair. I have clients. My clients are usually low millionaire, a couple million here or there, and they are realizing that the devaluation of the dollar, 7.9%, can make a low millionaire sweat because you just took $70,000 from their million, and for them that is a lot. So Charles Schwab sent one of my clients a letter. She had $3.2 million with Charles Schwab. She, from that $3.2 million, was getting paid about $30,000 a year. And I thought that was odd when I first heard it. I said, you have $3.2 million, why are you making $30,000 a year? And so we started to look at her paperwork, and so her money was yielding actually $90,000 a year. Charles Schwab saw fit to take $60,000 as fees per year and give this poor woman $30,000 as her yearly income. And they had just sent her a new letter that said, oh, by the way, you don't make enough money to sustain $30,000 a year. We're going to have to start cashing out your principal to keep up your living. So are these institutions treating you fairly? Probably not. And so we need to look into these institutions very logically and say, you offer me something. What do you offer? What are your fees? What are the restrictions? And then go to blockchain and say, you're offering something. What are the fees? What are the restrictions? And when we start to look at things apples and apples and compare, we'll see that blockchain is fundamentally designed to do better for you than these institutions. And it's true that the institutions can't compete. They have employees, they have retirement, they have buildings, they have nice cars, they wear suits. All of this costs money, and it has to come out of the individuals participating in the network. So what we need to do is ask ourselves very simply, I am currently participating in this environment because I was born in this environment. It doesn't necessarily make it the best environment. And there's new technology out here. We used to have the wagons and the horses, and now we have cars. What are we going to do? The hard thing is to stop, look at what we're doing, and look at blockchain and see how we can leverage it. Now, over my 9 years of investigating and looking at blockchain, looking at Bitcoin, researching the SHA-256 hash encryption, looking at the computer language and how it works, the security model, then reveling at Ethereum when it came out with smart contracts, and then realizing that it had some interesting issues in the sub-layer 1 and how it functioned, and then seeing new networks come out and what they're doing, this prompted me to step back, look at what I'm doing now, and then cherry pick all of the best pieces that I want personally for me. I want self-custody. I want to hold my assets, and I want to be able to go anywhere on the planet and exchange my money. If I'm holding my own money, I want to earn rewards or money in return for holding my money. I have that right to grow my wealth, and I also have a right to vote to change the direction of the chain so that nobody can devalue my assets. And it needs to be decentralized. Okay, so these are some of the pillars that we're looking at when we're looking at blockchain. And right now there's a big craze going on. Everybody's excited about NFTs, and they're excited about this or that, and there's white papers promising this, like all these things like Polygon and Arbitrum and Avalanche and all of these things, but nobody's looking at the tokenomics. Nobody's looking at the ability and whether they can vote on the chain. Nobody's looking at if it's even safe. Is it hackable? Nobody's really looking at all of these things, and so that's what the boot camp is for. I teach you guys how to evaluate blockchains for your personal benefit, and then when you leave my boot camp, are we done already? Okay. When we leave the boot camp, you guys have private wallets that nobody on the planet is even aware of. You've moved a little bit of money in there because it only takes you like $10 to start. Okay, you just need $10 to get a wallet going and active and working. When you leave me, you should have the skills to move as much money or as little money in that wallet as you choose. It's none of my business. And you have ways to get back to that money if anything ever happens. I think that's the most important thing we can do with blockchain right now, is look and see and choose the safest, absolute ways to leverage this technology for our benefit. And unfortunately, the safest ways don't result in 60% returns. They don't result in 30% interest returns yearly. It's modest. It's more like 3.5% to 5%. But what's very interesting is that aside from the growth percentage, this environment is growing 200% per year on average. So forget about it. As long as you're safe and you're yielding, you're good, because this environment has a lot more growth. If you have any questions, I've been going long-winded, guys. Any questions about it so far? Am I making sense? Like, does this stuff make sense to you? Making dollars and cents every day.
I would definitely like
To do the boot camp? Yeah.
Because I know a little bit.
Okay.
I used Electrum.
Okay.
Is that it? Electrum?
Yeah, Electrum. Mm-hmm.
Set up the wallet.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's a good one or not, but
So we'll talk about wallets, so we'll talk about SHA-256 hash encryption. I don't recommend any wallets unless it's a 24-word seed phrase. So there's lots of wallets out there. There's 15-word seed phrases, there's 12-word seed phrases, there's 24-word seed phrases. The more words, the increases the difficulty for cracking the wallet. Now, even cracking a 12-word seed phrase, I think the statistics were 1 trillion queries per second till the end of time to bust one of those wallets. So you're not going to bust even a 12-word seed phrase wallet, but why not go 24? Because if anybody is ever going to get hit first, the big warning flag is, your wallet got hacked? How? Well, I had a 12-word seed phrase wallet. Oh, mine's 24. So probably have like a few years before they get there, and then you can get out of the space, or you can do something else to protect yourself. So, yeah. What's that?
This is AI resistance, I think.
Yeah.
Because that'll be part of the threat, though, that
Correct.
the ability to do that. Otherwise,
Possibly, yeah.
I don't know.
Well, right now, we just had a meeting last month about shards, so sharding, which fractionalizes the data, and then they introduced the concept of quantum shards. So now we can quantumly create a shard, use it, it gets used, and it disappears forever. Wow. And so being able to break blockchain is going to be like grasping at molecules in the air pretty soon. You're just not going, the whole setup is going to usurp any kind of trackability or protocol that can be broken. It'll just be like a ghost. Yeah?
Can you give a few examples of maybe 2 or 3 wallets that you endorse?
That I like?
More than one?
Okay, so I am, that's my company. So if you go to my website, you can sign up for the boot camp, you guys.
What's the website?
CardanoMint.com, it's on my
Oh, like
backpack.
a shirt?
Yeah, like my shirt. And what do I do? I put real world utility, guys. Because why? We're using this for real world use. We want to hold our money, we want to secure it, and we want to get back. So,
I want to use the money, but I'll get to that question later.
yeah, well, they just came out with the Cardano card.
Okay, so this is good now, because this is the thing. You do want to be able to get returns on investment.
Sure,
And then
of course.
You want to be secure and safe, and you cover a lot of bases, you cover a lot of ground. Perfect.
Yeah.
However, somebody's going to want to go out and buy a piece of electronics.
Sure.
Someone's going to want to buy gas, or someone's going to
Check out the Cardano card. They just dropped it.
because with that 4% or 3% or whatever, they want to be able to use it. They
Yeah.
can share it down. So buying goods and services can be peer-to-peer. That's the exciting part for me about crypto is that we don't need an intermediary.
Right.
In between. Tell us. We just, James has a sack of potatoes and I got a little bit of Cardano. I was thinking a couple of Cardano, you do the potatoes and we're happy.
We're done. And so, yeah, now when we go to peer-to-peer, it's as easy as just helping somebody get a wallet, and then you can send them the value and they can work out the details later. When it comes to working with a business or an infrastructure, there has to be some mediation there, which is natural. And so they have a Cardano credit card now, and it's, you would buy the credit card, you can load it with your crypto, and then you can actually swipe it at any kiosk, it'll change the crypto value, and then it'll give you your change back in Cardano. So these are new things, new tools that are coming out, and it's infinitely cheaper than other networks because some of the fee scales on other networks are based off of demand, and on Cardano it's a finite fixed amount. You know how much the fee is going to be. So for example, why do we tip on Ethereum when we're sending transactions? Do we know? Because we want that transaction to get done sooner, right? And so what this creates is a class system. The poor people get their transactions done later. The wealthy people get their transactions done sooner. We don't want to inherently build in a class system to our financial grid. If we do that, guess what? We're not going to be in the top class, and we're going to be waiting, and we're going to succumb to that. So it's important that we have certain things in our blockchains that allow everybody to be treated equally, to be able to account for equally. Now, a lot of people complain about Cardano because there's a misunderstanding on the transactions. So some people are like, well, Cardano's no good because it only does X transactions per minute. But what they don't understand is if you compare it that way, yes, it is slower, but we batch transactions. So in one transaction, you could have 250 or 300 transactions in one. Whereas on other networks, one transaction is one transaction. And so they're saying, well, we can do 300 transactions a second. Yeah, but we can do 300 transactions in one transaction. And so all of a sudden the numbers game gets a little bit cloudy because it becomes a lot harder for people to see how much faster or more efficient things are. And that's why our fees are so much lower, because you can pile in a whole bunch of transactions per block. Yeah.
So when you're batching transactions, does that improve privacy? Because privacy is an important part of freedom. And
Yes.
it's an important part of innovation. When you limit privacy, you limit
Correct.
innovations. And we know Bitcoin is very difficult to remain private. It could be a
Yes.
good thing, depending
Right.
on what you want to use it for.
Right.
But Cardano, as far as privacy,
Do me a favor, when you get some time, I want you to look up Midnight. Midnight on Cardano. Midnight on Cardano. It privatizes things and allows authoritative, approved entities to look at private data, and then it blocks all the rest for private individuals. Our layer of privacy is here now. It's called Midnight. Check it out. It's awesome.
critical component to...
Critical component.
Because
Yeah.
you want people at... Tell me where you spent all your money last week.
Yeah, well, the way the EUTXO carries a transaction, it has the history of the UTXO in it. So if you receive funds, you can look at that UTXO and you can see everywhere it's been since its inception. So this is now this is encrypted. All you're seeing is hashes. There's no way to find out it was you or you, but still the data is there.
It affects fungibility. So
It does.
like one case won't accept certain crypto because it's been...
Yeah, they can see that it went through a laundering environment. So what's really neat is when you integrate things like Midnight, not only does all of that go blank, but authorities, proper authorities like governments, can have access to lobby, get approval, and view. And that is the process that it should be. We shouldn't completely tell our government, hey, you can't find anybody that's doing bad things. That wouldn't be right. But we do need to have a protocol or a process for them to engage and gain access to that information.
They're not
So.
finding anybody doing bad things, they're the ones doing bad things.
No, that's true. I was trying to play the light side of it, but
I value privacy. That's a huge part of what built into crypto and should be
Yeah.
part of the whole ethos. And,
Yeah.
and the thing is that affects centralized changes. And so,
Absolutely.
I'm okay with that because I'd rather have privacy than a centralized change. That
Absolutely.
can limit who I can trade with. I'm more than you and I don't want to transact with other people.
right. And so my big ask for everybody, and I think it is an important one, is stop looking at blockchain from the perspective of it's all the same. Understand that it is fundamentally different at the layer one, and then say, okay, which layer one treats me the best? Which one preserves my value? Which one can I vote on? Where can I earn interest while it's in my custody? Which one is decentralized? All these questions, once you start to look at what's best for you, yeah.
Which ones, layer one ones that you know about have all five of the things you just said?
Cardano.
Oh, that's the only one.
It's the only one I can find, and I look at blockchain every day, all day. And every time somebody throws me a coin, I start like this. Throw me the coin, what's the name? And then they tell me the name, and I say, what is the tokenomics of this token? Why? I need to figure out if we can print this sucker to infinity, because I don't want an inflationary token to represent my money.
Yeah, and what about the interaction between tokens? So, for example, if
Fungibility.
If there's 10,000 people out there creating 10,000 different tokens, and I happen to put my money in the one that disappears in 2 years,
Yeah.
it's just gone.
It's gone.
Everything's gone.
It's gone. And that's why it is important to look for another thing, government adoption. There's our sixth pillar. Our government's starting to utilize it, because if a government is using it, then that means it's probably going to stick around. Because you're right, we're in this realm where Bitcoin popped up, and then all of a sudden a basket of tokens dumped on top of Bitcoin, burying it in this sea of confusion, right? And so people are starting to pick all this other stuff, and they're missing the hard assets. They're missing the fixed supplies. They're missing the voting. They're missing it because they're seeing all this other nonsense that can be printed to infinity, or it's pushed by VCs.
It's like if they're not going to make more gold. Well,
Right.
they're not gonna make more gold, but they're right now. They're not gonna make
Right now, yeah.
But that's a great analogy. It's like I had some valuable gold here, and then somebody came and dumped
Fake gold.
gold-colored rocks on top of it that all
To hide
have the
it.
same shape. And I'm like, I don't know where
Right.
the gold is anymore,
And-
because there's too much fool's gold out there.
Exactly. And that's I love
Sorting
that.
that out is really difficult to do.
I love that. That it is fool's gold in a lot of ways. And I would stretch to say probably 98% of blockchain out there is fool's gold. You can print it to infinity. It's run by a closed group of VCs. They fill it with a whole bunch of money. They ride it up during these sensitive times during the market. They pull out, and then they watch you guys all crash. And this is, somebody will be like, oh God, that sounds so nasty, but isn't that what hedge funds do? Has anybody seen the movie Dumb Money? You know, if you've seen the movie Dumb Money, you know these guys do this for fun. And so if that's their attitude, then we have to assume that this is the attitude in blockchain as well. And if that's the case, then we need to really look in a more meaningful direction. And that's why I'm big on self-custody, decentralization, voting, yield, and having government adoption.
I'm sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
you. You're on a run. I see what you're doing. A couple of things that are important to mention. These things seem like you're afraid of going away in 2 years. You want to look at the Bitcoin white paper, because those are the principles that
Yes.
we're following. And once you do 22 pages, not very technical, but it talks about removing the central points of failure. And that's
Right.
really what everything that James is talking about here is saying, hey, let's remove these central points of failure. We know they're
Right.
there. And usually it's humans, right? That's why
Almost always it's a human in the
People
mix,
who call
yes.
themselves government, that's the issue. We need to
Right.
remove them from the equation, because all they're doing is stealing from us. Now, Bitcoin and many other cryptos, they only require one node or one miner. So say we have a huge worldwide power outage, but there's still some backup power, there's still satellites. there's still one node to trade on. That's not going to go away in 2 years ever. And maybe 98% of those fool school ones may not either. But if they conform to the tokenomics of the Bitcoin white paper, decentralization, distributed ledger, so that sort of thing,
They could rise.
you can
Yeah.
count on it because it's in code.
Right.
You don't have to count on James or me or some other guy to make sure that 2 years later, don't invest in those coins, I would say. You
Right,
gotta
right.
reach a certain ethos.
I love that. And the most important thing to pivot off of that is the fact that if you can find these value sets in a blockchain, the chances that it'll be here in 2 years are much greater than the ones that are making these really epic promises and they're not fitting the mold of what we're looking for now. I reference and learn and think of blockchain from the perspective of Benjamin Graham. Does anybody know who he is? Benjamin Graham. He is a famous investor, and Warren Buffett actually became a billionaire utilizing his thought processes. And it's a value investing thought process. What will be valuable in the future? What problems do we have today that this technology, even though it's not ready, can solve tomorrow? And just like that, when you start to look at blockchains and say, hey, how's our voting system these days? Do people trust voting in the US? Right. What if we put voting on blockchain? It's transparent, it's immutable, it's uncorruptible. You have digital ID. These are things that we can consider. So when you go from the Benjamin Graham value perspective of investing, having a voting mechanism on a blockchain becomes very interesting because this will solve a problem that we have now. So voting can be another big deal, right? That's why I think voting on blockchain is huge. Full disclosure, 2 weeks ago, reported by IOG, Frederick Gegard, he announced that 2 states in the US contacted them, and they're in, I believe they're in Switzerland, and they are interested in them building a voting protocol for the state. How soon will it be before more states get wind of this and people start utilizing blockchain for voting?
Gotta do it quick.
Yep. Well, yeah, it might not get this session, but it's coming. And so now we go back to Benjamin Graham in the value aspects and value investing, voting, self-custody, private yield, decentralization. All of these things are going to matter. And so that's why I'm so big on certain networks versus others, because I don't care what they're saying. If you can print the token to infinity, if I have to send the money away for 2 years and it's locked away from me and it's not liquid and I can't get access to it, I don't want anything to do with that. And by the way, I just described Ethereum's staking model. Okay? Ethereum's staking model is you have to take your money, send it to a node operator for 2 years lockdown. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's a lot of money too.
Yeah, well, you have to have 36 ETH, so you have to have $100,000 basically. So there's a barrier to earning interest on your money in Ethereum. Only the rich can earn interest on their money in Ethereum. And so all of these weird barriers exist in these networks, and so I logically sit back and I say, gosh, why would anybody do that? That makes no sense to not only have a ton of money, send it, lock it, and then while it's locked, there's risks of slashing. If somebody hacks that node, you get slashed. Why would you get slashed if somebody hacked his node? What if he just hacks the node for fun? You lose your money? It seems like a vulnerable position to be in a globally unregulated environment. So people putting money in these networks, they simply don't understand the risk. And that's why I'm here. What's that? Yeah, it's a central point of failure right there.
80% of that is run on Amazon Web Service. Well, that's
Yeah.
a central point of failure.
Absolutely.
Centralization is so important. You're on a roll again, and I'm loving what you're talking about. This
Thanks.
is really important. And
I love it.
I hate to interrupt you.
No, you're good, man.
Amazing. And
I love it.
You guys, thanks for listening. We value things in the dollar. This is everything.
It's our habit.
Bitcoin's value in the dollar. He values Cardano in the dollar. Well, we all know the dollar's backed by the full faith and trust in the government. Well, I haven't talked to one person that says they have full faith and trust in the government.
True.
So why are we valuing anything in the dollar? So it's a whole mindset change.
Right.
But can you speak to that a little bit about
Yeah.
what happens in this transfer when we you know,
Well,
Yeah.
I was thinking something along those lines,
Yeah.
which is, what is the dollar really? Is it the full faith and credit of the government? No. It's the fact that everyone believes in it.
Correct.
Well,
It's the fact that 300 million people are willing to you hand me a $20 bill,
And I'll accept it.
$20 bill, and I'm like, I believe that this is worth $20. whatever $20 happens to be worth at the time,
Right.
Because we believe it.
Right, we call that fungibility.
That's really what makes it happen.
Correct.
And that happens globally as well.
Correct.
Which is the reason the United States maintains its position, because everybody else in the world believes in our currency too.
Correct.
But once that flips and changes, then that will crumble. And my fear is the same thing can happen. Like whatever your coin is, you have to have the belief. Even though I understand that the technology, in a way, obviates the belief. At least it certainly did when it was only Bitcoin, or the Bitcoin white paper as you're talking about. Suddenly there's all these other things. You know what I mean? That may give me pause. I'm like, well, okay, if 12% of the people believe in this one, and 12% believe in that one, and 15% believe in that one, there is no trust in.
So this, I love where you're at. So let's talk about this then, and my laptop's working. So you just mentioned something really important, that the very fact is that the rest of the world believes in the dollar. Who has heard of BRICS? Okay, what does BRICS stand for? Do you guys know?
Brazil, India, China, Russia.
Right, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, BRICS. What did they just announce last year?
A new crypto, right?
They announced, not a new crypto, they announced their own monetary system. And then they
I thought it was based on the crypto. No?
it is based off of a blockchain of some sort. It may be Bitcoin. But the fact of the matter is just like you said, right now, most everybody uses the dollar. But we're not talking about now, we're talking about the future. And in the future, we know that BRICS has had its 10th meeting. BRICS is growing rapidly. It's not just that group we mentioned. The group actually covers over 47% of the global landmass on the planet. And they are not going to use the American dollar. So I agree with you right now today, but we're not talking about today when it comes to blockchain. We're doing value investing with Benjamin Graham. And we're talking about what are the problems today and what will tomorrow look like.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
understand that. What
Yeah.
I'm saying is, BRICS is over here,
Mm-hmm.
someone's doing something else over here. Really, which is the one that everyone will believe in the end?
Well, right now I can definitely see that a lot of countries are very angry with the way that we lever the dollar against them. And so if they get an opportunity to work with a more fair, more decentralized group, it's not just the US monetary system, the Bretton Woods Agreement, we're talking about multiple continental monetary system that they all agree on, which will be ultimately more fair than one country, one government controlling that dollar.
Do you think that will be the one?
The problem is I don't know which one it'll be, but what I do know is if I can get out of money that is controlled by any government that is globally tradable, I'll probably do better off than sticking with the dollar. And so we look at the debt clock and we look at a lot of things and we say, the dollar is declining, BRICS just came out with their own monetary system, blockchain is growing 200% per year, what do I do? And so this is why we want to hedge against this loss. Are you all set, sweetheart? You're very welcome. You guys, I think we ran a little long, but I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate it. Go to cardanomint.com. That's my website. I have a schedule there. Just click for my boot camp. Set up a conference with me. We'll schedule you either privately if you prefer or in a group, and then we'll get you guys your own private wallets yielding interest on a network that has voting and is decentralized. Okay? All right, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Sorry that the laptop went down. Dang it, I had a really cool thing to show you.